Well, as the show continues on here, I am at the Great Bend Center for Music with Matt Melendez. How are you?
Good.
It's good to see you.
It's good to have you out
It's
here.
great to be out here, and we were talking about all the things that you have been bringing to the youth in our community for music, and this last year and a half has been really tough, but you've found some ways to engage and interact with kids with these music courses and music programs, and you have some more coming up that it's open to the whole country now, so we want to make sure that our Mason County kids know about it.
That's it. I want to fill as many of those slots with Mason County kids as possible. But yeah, the last year and a half has been a real opportunity for us to figure out different ways to apply our core expertise, which is how do we use music as a community development tool. So there's this internationally acclaimed model called El Sistema that's about conservatory-based music training for little kids that, is about the music, but it's more about teaching leadership and teamwork. And it's got a great track record. 60 Minutes has done several episodes on it. And so we had already designed our own version of that program that we had planned to launch in collaboration with the YMCA as a part of YCare. And then the pandemic happened. And so about a year ago, I was doing all of this training for music teachers on how you teach online, and thought, wow, the early childhood piece of this, I think we could deliver online. And so we piloted it this last year, and it was hugely successful for a couple of reasons. One, all of the behavior management things that you would normally have to do, particularly with 3 and 4-year-olds, learning to sit still, learning to take turns, learning to raise your hand, that you just skip over because those kids are so ready to be on an iPad focused for 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was just that we just skipped that part completely, and they were just right there participating. And so that allowed us to get right into content. And so by the end of the year, we had an army of 5-year-olds across King, Pierce, Kitsap, and Mason counties who were reading rhythms better than my adult choristers.
Oh my gosh.
And that really lit me up.
When it comes to youth and the music and exposure in that, outside of families who may have backgrounds, I mean, when I was in elementary school, I think you picked up the recorder maybe in third grade, fourth grade. In fifth, you had the opportunity to join band, but it took away my third recess. So that was a real,
Yep.
So bringing this to a younger age, what does that do for them developmentally down the road?
That's perfect. Okay, so it does a lot. It does an enormous amount. So basically all the participatory skills you need to collaborate in music are all skills that you really need to succeed in school. And because it's all about modulating behavior and listening outside of yourself, listening across the group. So those are skills that apply. And the great thing about that is that you get that stimulation, and say you're participating in one 10-week course with us. If that child never has another music lesson at all, those changes and those improvements neurologically are permanent. They never go away. So there's that too. But in terms of what you just talked about, in terms of the way we introduce kids to music in this country, I think is fundamentally flawed. And this is my own, this is not, I hope I didn't just tap that and make noise, but this is my own theory. This is not published or peer reviewed, but what you said, 4th or 5th grade, we hand them an instrument. They've maybe had a recorder at that point. And normally when we're handing them an instrument, one, we don't talk about the physical discomfort of learning technique on an instrument. Make sure you're pressing the keys this way. Make sure you keep your curves. Make sure you got the, there's all of that in terms of learning to hit the right pitch at the right time. And that's a lot. But normally on top of that, we're also in a very covert, not very in front way. Also, I'm like, and here's what a quarter note is, and here's what meter is, and here's what a downbeat is, and here's what piano and forte and all these Italian terms mean. And I think we do kids a disservice throwing all that at them at once. And so while 4th or 5th grade is definitely the right age for real instruments, in terms of all of that general musicianship, we can start delivering that at age 2 and give that foundation in a slew of really fun game-based ways that set kids up. So by the time you're ready to put an instrument in their hands, the principles they get, now they're just looking to apply those principles to this one instrument and see how they like it. And that's a big part of what we're struggling to create curriculum that does. I want to set, I remember a time here in Mason County when we didn't have music specialists at all of our primary schools. And I think we do now for all schools, I think, but South Side. And so how do we support those music specialists who don't get enough time with those kids? So how can we complement in a sequential skills way what they're doing? And then again, our high school, we have some really amazing high school music educators in Mason County who are not just doing amazing things at the high school level, but doing them when most of the students they get as freshmen, they're starting from scratch in terms of basic ensemble musicianship. And so we figured that's our lowest common denominator. Let's design for Mason County and see what the appeal is beyond that.
So what are these opportunities that we have coming up here?
Our pilot program, our program for early childhood is called Sound Scholars. And we piloted a group called OtterPod this last year. So pods are our term for age-based cohorts. So OtterPod is the entry one, and that's for ages 2 to 5. And then we move on to Seal Pod, which is kindergarten and first grade. And then we move on to Porpoise Pod, which is grades 2 and 3. And the reason they are pods is, one, we're here on Hood Canal, and we do a lot of play. It's all games and play. So it's pretty rigorous conservatory education, but the kids wouldn't describe it that way at all. And those are all mammals that live here locally that learn primarily by playing. And music you learn by playing. You play an instrument, you play music. And so we're tying all that together. And we also do a lot of work, like last fall when we launched the project, we did a great 10-part series with the Salmon Center where each week the musical concept we were exploring, whether it was the difference between beat and rhythm, or repeating cycles in music, or changes in pitch and color, we explored with a teaching naturalist from the Salmon Center how those concepts show up in nature. So repeating cycles show up as tides and the day-night cycle, and how plants and animals use that. My favorite was we did 2-part series on animals that sing. Of course, one was birds, but the other was fish. And that's a relatively new discovery that fish are communicating by singing. Huh. And again, it was crazy fun. And the kids looked every Thursday. Lucas from the Salmon Center was visiting, and the kids look forward to that. So, we threw a lot against the wall last year. It's really, it's very fast paced. It's a half hour every single day. It's daily instruction. And that's what makes the difference, I think, in terms of the content and the success, but I think that also makes the difference in terms of our other primary priority as an El Sistema program, which is to create a sense of community. I want the kids to feel like they're seeing their friends every day, and I didn't know how that would happen on a Zoom environment, and I shouldn't have been worried because the kids just do it for themselves. And so very quickly we got into kids signing on 5 minutes early so they could visit with each other. Did you lose that tooth yet? Mm-hmm. How many more days till your birthday? Did you do this? I got this, I got this Lego thing, or did you see the Mandalorian last night? I mean, that kind of stuff, which I just love. And so was, just a great foundational element, like, okay, how do we build off of that? So you can look back at the videos that we created over the course of the year, and you can see what's going on in terms of the season. There's quite a big stretch where baby Yodas are being used as rhythm exercises, or as a way to show, okay, I'm going to show you half notes, but I'm not going to use my voice or my kazoo. I'm going to use Baby Yoda and just show him for 2 beats out of the 4 count. All different kinds of fun ways to explore. And that was the other thing. I didn't know how much I was going to love Zoom as a teaching tool, especially for this age. I mean, it's just the online games, the puppets. Zoom is a puppet theater. It's a built-in puppet theater. There's so much you can do. And with El Sistema as well, there's the community component. And then as soon as a child masters a skill to any degree, you want them teaching that skill. So we didn't quite know how we were going to incorporate that, but it turned out, having the kids, okay, you've really mastered what a quarter note is. Now, would you record a 30-second teaching video so that you can introduce that to somebody else? I mean, just was just wonderful, and all these kids want to be YouTube stars anyway. So this was good practice for them, and it gave us opportunities too for us to talk about the ethics of that and talk about how you want to manage your online presence and how, at the very youngest of age, because that's important these days.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just ended up being this great way to sort of put all that in. So we're expanding the program this year. We just had one cohort with several different class sessions. So if you missed the 9 o'clock, you could drop into the 10 o'clock or whatever. But this year we're really separating into separate age groups so we can go further. We are preparing. We will probably get into recorders by the end of the year.
Good. If you need
but
any help, I still remember.
Awesome.
Ode to
Awesome.
Joy.
Soprano recorder? Because I have a soprano, an alto, and a tenor here.
No,
Because of course.
I don't know. Is this long and
Yeah, that's a soprano recorder. Yeah.
It was perfect. For me.
So, but but we do give, like, all the kids get kazoos and claves. And I spend all year apologizing and thanking the parents. But we have a really good time with it. And again, those two instruments really help us. Yeah, the big concept we tackle right off the base is beat is something you feel in your body. You don't hear the beat. There might be something happening on the beat that you hear, but the beat you feel versus rhythm is something you hear. And then we explore all the different ways through our bodies, through our eyes, whatever, that we can play with those two concepts. And then we just spend the whole year building on that. So fall is all about beat and rhythm and basic notation. So recognizing that shape of a note or a rest denotes duration and getting that concept. Then winter term is just all about pitch and things that go high and low. And then we tie those things together to focus on staff notation and explore additional dimensions of music in the spring term, which are things like color and articulation and line.
So a couple more things here. Where do we go to sign up? And then you mentioned a 9 o'clock and a 10 o'clock, but how would a family be able to integrate this if they're going back as well into the regular school year?
So so we've got a range of time slots this year. So for the 2 to 5 year olds, we have 4 time slots. So preschoolers, those are 9, 10, 11, and noon. For kindergartners and first graders, we're planning around the first grade schedule. And so we have time slots at 7 and 7:30, and then time slots at 4 and 4:30.
Oh, okay.
So there's before and after school, and those are pretty traditional El Sistema slots. Most El Sistema programs are both before and after school. So before school is skills and technique, and then after school is typically ensemble practice. And then same for second and third grade. There's a 7 a.m. and a 7:30 p.m. slot and a 4 to 4:30 p.m. slot. And those are where they are right now. We're already getting requests for additional slots. So literally I have a meeting this afternoon with my staff to talk about, okay, what requests have we gotten from around the country and what do we need to participate in to support everybody else's participation.
Great Bend Center for Music.org.
Yes, and about the early childhood piece, it's greatbendmusic.org/sound scholars. You can find it on the homepage as well.
Okay.
And then we're also launching for 4th through 8th graders. So the Sound Scholars program is free. That's another really important part of the El Sistema program, because we can't make the social change we want to make unless we're really reaching all families, and the financial part is a barrier to entry. So I want to say a big thank you to our sponsors who are allowing us to provide a year of this for free and bootstrap ourselves to the next level, which is great. It's a big difference that we can make that way. For 4th through 8th graders, we have a program called High Key Kids, which is general musicianship and then topic-based things. Like this fall, it's digital audio production. So how do you produce in a Billie Eilish way the music that you want to create? How do you curate natural sound? And then the number one request we've had is music for video games. How do you compose loops for video games?
Sure.
How do you match that to the action? How do you integrate it into your encoding? And so, as well as, again, our basic general musicianship class, which teaches everything from literacy to MIDI and keyboarding. And that is fee-based, although it's less than $10 a class. And that is also a quarterly based, fall, winter, spring. But that is specifically, again, based on how do we support 4th through 8th graders in a way that gives them the tools they need to really take advantage of the opportunities they're going to have once they get into one of our great high schools here.
Matt Melendez is the director for the Great Bend Center of Music here in Union and all across the country. These opportunities are open to school-age kids in Mason County, but make sure you get those registrations signed up because it is open to folks all across. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Thank you so much for the interest.
Well, thank you for letting me be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you out.